car will pull its way into pit lane. The control will go the way of the front of the field. That's Diogo Pinto and Oscar Pai alongside Team Redline, Coanda. They'll be going toe-to-toe. You've got Vitality in there, you've got Grid and Go in there. You've got lots of cars in the background that are almost certainly going to crash. 55 cars about to do action here at Fuji as we head onto the start-finish straight. Green flag is out. Diogo Pinto will try and cover the Grid and Go car. Bit of contact there between Coanda. Oscar Pai tried to cut across and he's knocked the lights off of the front end of that Grid and Go car. There's a big slide there and a big crash. It's Drago Racing who was sent round. He collects the vitality of Timo Kazmon, and I'm not accepting that as a commentator's curse. That was pretty sus.
I mean, that is a perfect example of the commentator's curse, and I'm going to hold you to that one, but oh my. I'm not joking when I said it was 7 wide between those in the midfield. It was actually 7 cars battling side by side down to turn 1 around Fuji. I mean, I said to you before that this will be a good, before we went live, I said this would be a really good combo, this will. Fuji and the Radical SR10s. Believe me, it has been what a start we've had. Of course, Pai up into first, Pinto second, Camillo up into P3, McCormack has somehow made it to P4 as Pinto's gone wide.
No, it was McCormack. Darren McCormack, I think, missed his braking point, went straight on. There's some contact in the background and a few spins, a big crash in the background. Indeed, Darren McCormack will get ahead of Will Murdoch. Diogo Pinto's back up into second position, but I think it might have been McCormack. It was certainly McCormack or Murdoch who missed their braking point going into the into that hairpin. This is all of the calamity that happened on board with the U Amateurs car as they try and figure their way through. Thankfully, the car lighting the way as it's getting blocked and blocked and blocked. He does indeed say hello to the BS hybrid car, gets a smack on the back as well for good measure, and back out on the start-finish straight we go. Coanda leads from Redline, from EMM, from BS competition, and then from the Grid and Go car. Darren McCormack up the 3rd position, and you can tell, looking at the front of that car of Darren McCormack, there is no, unless that's a, I was going to say, I wonder if it was a visual thing, but I was concerned there was no lights on that car.
Well, I was going to say then, I thought you was going to say something about damage, and I was going to say, how are your eyes that good? Because I could barely see the front of the car, never mind anything else. But no, great start from Oscar Pai. Of course, somehow avoided all the contact as he is fiercely forward through in towards the 3rd sector into turn 13. And yeah, there was just a concertina, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cars involved there. And here's the Williams F1 team Cayman Academy car who was in the back of the grid already. And they go even further down, a slight bit of contact, and off we go. We spin around fully out of the final corner, and that is that's like, what?
There's no way this Avalon Motorsport car can say anything. This is an actual onboard of an actual car trying to actually drive around this actual circuit. That is impossible, unfortunately, for Avalon. 1.2 seconds, the lead for Oscar Pai. Diogo Pinto trying to close that one back in. One thing that we don't have to deal with in this race that we have done for the previous 2. Realistically, there'll be no pit stops for the SR10s. They'll be able to run their way through this 45-minute race, no problem. Darren McCormack knocking at the door of Team Redline, a team that he's fought time and time again in competitions outside of outside of just VCO across the world of sim racing. He's battled them time and time again, whether it's been on Rennsport or elsewhere. He'll find his way through on Diogo Pinto here, so clearly he's taken to iRacing and this Radical SR10 pretty comfortably. Into second place he's going to go.
Definitely has done, and so, I mean, Will Murdoch and Sven Hasser have also had really good starts to get up into the top 5. I mean, Francisco Camillo, who we saw file down the field, is back into 7th for the Capivara Racing, so a really good job from him to get back up into the top 10. Of course, Gregory Hoverson, 8th, Pester 9th, and then Daniel Ola, the top 10 as it stands, as Pedro Martins goes up into P12 there, making a nice move for Delta Sim Sport as we make our way down towards the braking zone once again. You can see that gap at the front between Pai and McCormack now sitting at just over 1.1 seconds. I mean, at what point does Pai feel a little bit comfortable here in this one?
When the gap keeps growing and it gets to more than about 3 or 4 or maybe 10 seconds, then he'll feel comfortable. At this point at 1.2, definitely not feeling comfortable. Diogo Pinto there on the right-hand side of your bottom of your screen. Alongside him is the BS competition car, Will Murdoch behind the wheel of that one. Got to say, like him, Diogo Pinto. Obviously, the whole setup and stuff with the Redline logos and stuff obviously looks sick, but also it's lit up, which is something which the race circuit would be very envious of at this moment. Bit of lap traffic for Oscar Pai to already deal with here. He's already picked his way through it. Still leads by 1.2 seconds, but that's going to be added slipstream given to Darren McCormack, with the lapped car now basically halving the gap between him and the group behind.
Certainly, and that helps, isn't it, when there's lapped cars involved, especially when you need slipstream, as Pinto goes back into second place, battling side by side there with McCormack, as here's a Falcon Sim Racing Team Blue car having a bit of an excursion there with another car. Oh, and a bit of netcode there, and against half spun rain, rejoins a few positions below, and that could have definitely gone a lot worse for him, as MG18 SimTech Pro there with a car that made their way through on that one, as Pinto still under pressure from McCormack here, but I'm sure these two will just keep swapping and changing for P2 and P3 as the race goes on. Of course, just trying to bring that gap down to Oscar Pye. Of course, they've got Will Murdoch in 4th, Hasser in 5th, as Hoverson there going ahead of Francisco Camilla. That's a great move to put him up into 7th place. So yes, I mean, the top 10 so far, it's interesting. A few of our bigger teams that we normally see there aren't there at the moment, are they?
No, that car though, getting out of the way, that was a back marker that jumps out of the way. This is looking back from Gregory Hoverson with Dominic Pesta and Francisco Camillo, who were going side by side. David Sobrero will now look to the inside for TC Esports and will complete the move again. That car out of the way, that is just going a lap down. Do not panic too much as we'll navigate this uphill section. I was saying towards the end of qualifying, I don't think I've ever hit the apex through the penultimate corner or the final one. It's so brutally difficult to find the apex in those final couple of corners. It's just such an awkward couple of turns. Genuinely, I don't use this word lightly. I actually despise the final sector here. Cannot stand
I mean, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Not because I think it's hard to battle, but also I can't drive it in any car.
It's hard to drive, yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible. It is absolutely horrible. One of the worst sectors, I think, of all tracks I've driven on iRacing. But you know what I do love? The long straight down to turn 1, which I believe you probably know more than me, because you're a stat fanatic. Isn't that the longest straight of any sort of like top grade circuit in the world? Surely, I'm sure.
It depends. It depends how you classify the straight, because some people will classify it as Baku, but that technically goes from what is effectively like the third to last corner. But yeah, exactly. I think the front stretch here is 1.5 kilometers from memory. I distinctly remember it was just under a mile long.
Yeah.
It is very, very long. Certainly is one of the longest straights you'll ever see in motorsport. The straight in Shanghai might be up there, but it's not front straight. But things like that, I'm not 100% sure. But either way, it's very, very long. Certainly is the longest straight that we've got on the on today's calendar.
Yes, definitely. It's got to be up there. I mean, it's great for moves, especially in these cars which love slipstream. That they love that. So it just means that sometimes we're going to get some really good battles, especially when you've got big groups of cars together and they're all just trying to dilate the slipstream, they're darting across everywhere. And the question is as well, pit stops in this one. We've seen in the past 2 races that the race pretty much, I wouldn't say be decided by pit stops, but it's had a heavy influence in the top 3. I wonder what we're going to get to see here, especially with the gaps being quite close. I mean, the top 3, 1.2 seconds, the top 5, 2 seconds. I mean, that they can't be losing a 10th here and a 10th there. They've got to be gaining at minimum, haven't they?
Yeah. Oh, I said that longest straight thing with such confidence, and I kind of forgot that we actually raced at Road America. I'm not sure how long the long stretch is at Road America. It's up there. Tell you what, you give me a minute or two, I'll tell you how long they both are. All right?
Yes, go for it. Get the stats and get the ruler. Oh no. Our claim data says, well, it is GT Spain, but we're going to call them GT's Pain because they've had like 5 crashes so far. She's not full. Oh, that's the Brabham Motorsport car going off the track, and there was, I don't think, close to a barrier, but we couldn't see the barrier. They rejoined anyway without any incident, without any damage, as Fast Repair Motorsport go round, as Sven Hasser goes into 3rd, makes a move ahead of Darren McCormack, and that's a great move for Grid & Go to go up into 3rd place. And I think McCormack's made a mistake or has been involved with in something to do with Will Murdoch, because they've both dropped back.
Yeah, I think there probably is a little bit of a, like I say, there's more to it than just the gap that appears, right? That's that is the important bit to know. Thankfully, I was right, by the way. Whew, I just stuck with confidence. 1.5 kilometers is the start finish straight in Fuji. 1.25 is the start finish straight at Road America. So don't worry, just trust the stats. Trust the stats.
ignoring the corners, would Baku be longer, surely?
Oh, not a clue. I'm not even going anywhere near it.
That's fair.
It's just the Baku's definitely. I think it's definitely shorter if you go from the actual final corner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that was a bit of a cut over from Sven Haase as Darren McCormack back into third position. Will Murdoch very close. Whoa! Sven Haase just driven into the back of him. What a mistake from the grid and go car. I'm a little bit speechless. Just drove straight into the back of him. I mean, clearly just didn't get on the brakes early enough.
And I think that was close on the rejoin as well. But no, that's really odd from Sven Haase. Not the sort of mistake we expect to see from him at all. Especially for Grid and Go, who are actually starting to work their way up in the standings. They're 110 points back as of last round, and they sit P5. And there's a replay again, just straight into the back of McCormack, and that was not ideal. And I don't know how that didn't take out McCormack as well. I mean, that was. It didn't look like a light tap at all, did it? It looked quite hefty from our view at least, but that is not good at all for a Grid and Go, as we can see here. What's happened to Oscar Pye? That came down to 5/10, so I presume he's been caught up into the 1 second gap, and then of course Pinto's used the straights to bring that gap down. But Diogo Pinto closing in again to look for the win. Of course, he did take a win earlier on. That was in these cars at Charlotte Roval. So can he go back to back in these cars is the question with 33 minutes to go.
Yeah, Gary Paravani's brought up, but it's obviously not in. We're now just talking about the length of straights, which is fascinating. He suggested the Dattinger obviously on the Nordschleife. If you go from Galgenkopf to the apex of Antonsbrücke, which is obviously where the bridge is, that's about 2 kilometres. If you carry it all the way up to the next braking zone, which is going down to Tiergarten, the apex there is 2.8 kilometres off of the apex from Galgenkopf. So yeah, that's a little longer, I think, than 1.5k. I mean, the Mulsand's got some big chicanes in it. If you remove the chicanes in the Mulsand and take it all the way down to Mulsand corner, like it used to be, whopping
3 kilometres.
Yeah, that's. See, now I've got to go and find that out now. This is. I'm on side quest in the middle of this broadcast whilst Coanda and Team Redline are trying to battle that out for victory. 32 minutes left to go in this race. Plenty of time. No pit stops. Just an all-out battle between Oscar Pye and Diogo Pinto for victory here at Fuji.
Indeed, through the horrible final sector between these two. Of course, you're never going to see a move between turn 11 and turn 15. Of course, we're on board here with Pinto into the final corner, and you can just see these cars are so lively that they're skirming around everywhere, and the gap's 3/10 here as they make their way down to turn 1. As we know, 1.5 kilometres of a straight here for Pinto to go for the lead. This shouldn't be hard of a move at all. Coanda Esports there of Pye keeping the lead, and actually Pinto choosing at the moment to stay ahead. So I think this is tactics here for Pinto just to stay behind the back of Oscar Pye as Darren McCormack goes back into third place ahead of Will Murdoch. Of course, those two are just going to swap and change to try and catch up to the top 2. So that gap sits at 2 seconds, but clever there by Pinto to sit behind the back of Oscar Pye, and I suppose a little bit like what we'd see in F1 and call it the DRS chicken game, or just the DRS game, just sitting behind and not using that slipstream to the normal advantage you'd expect them to do. So interesting as David Sobrero there, I think, has run into a mistake, and I think he's crashed and into the pit lane.
That is a bit of a shame there for TC Esports, losing out some much needed points at this point in the competition. But yes, back into the pit lane. The answer, by the way, is 5.6 kilometres if you go from Tete Rouge all the way down to Mulsanne corner.
Triple this nearly.
Yeah, right. This is the conversation you would have in a typical 24-hour race at this point, where you go on side tangents because obviously not so much is going on. Obviously everything's still going on here in VCO Infinity, including this for David Sobrero, who went for a big slide. He clipped that curve basically at the exit of turn 3, 4, whatever you want to call it. You've got the curve, there's a little bit of guttering where it's for rainwater to go into, and it's one of those ones you either want to go over it or not touch it, because as soon as you touch it, you go for a spin. It's just unbalances the car and off you go.
Yeah.
Big shame there for TC Esports, and yes, losing out an awful lot of points. Will Diogo Pinto go for a move, or is he going to quite happily, and understandably so, just sit behind Oscar Pye? 30 minutes left to go in the race. If he battles with Oscar Pye now, he'll definitely bring in Darren McCormack and Will Murdoch. If he doesn't battle, and hope that those two do, then it's no longer a part.
No, definitely not. I mean, McCormack and Peter and Murdoch have brought that gap down by, I think, nothing over the past lap. They've not lost, but they haven't gained on Pye and Pinto. As we see further back there, a move for Levesque into P15 ahead of Sven Grootz. Further back as well, there was a couple of moves happening, and just looking at our live timings, I mean, it says battle for position pretty much everywhere. There's like 8 or 9 on here which says battle for position, as we do see Dominic Pester make the move ahead of Gregory Hoverson and goes into P6. Great move indeed from him for Sorrento Motorsport. So he's smashing there at the Falcon Sim Racing car. As we still keep an eye on this battle here between Pye and Pinto. Of course, Pinto was on pole. So many P's there between Pye and Pinto. The P1 and P2.
Cormac. We'll just keep calling. We'll change everyone to have a P up there as well. Cormac, Purdock, Plotto, Pester. We can do. That's fine. Little bit deep there for Diogo Pinto, unfortunately, through the final corner, but nothing too major. Again, picks up the slipstream on the 1.5 kilometre start finish straight. Here's a reminder of the race start and how things unfolded into that opening corner. A bit of contact there between Commander and the grid and go-kart dropping backwards. Just very messy with us, and then look at that! Whee! Drago Racing right.
And there's the commentator's curse of Thibaut Casabon, who was going to win the race, and I wonder why he didn't. Lewis at turn 1, about 30 seconds after he didn't win it. I mean, he didn't have a chance of winning it, sorry.
You will get fired from racing.
Oh!
Wow, Drago having the
that Drago racing car.
Was it? I think it was Drago.
Yeah, Romanidis, because he started 5th, didn't he? He's the one who locked up and slid into everyone. As quick thing, Dominic Pester up to P5. He's flying, isn't he?
I think Michael Romanidis might get a little bit angry if you said that he locked up. I definitely think he was tapped.
Was it contact? Was it?
I am 95% sure that it was contact. Here's some lovely romantic slow-mos on your Valentine's Day evening / night. Look at this. Stick some piano music on that bad boy. Off we go. And I'll give that a 15 out of 10 for the finish.
That's fair. I'll rate that. Oh dear me. I mean, you can tell it's the graveyard shift, can't you? I mean, it's 1 AM for us. It's even late for those in Europe. Of course, you, Lewis, have a nice 5-hour break before you're back again. I suppose, well, luckily that'll get to have a little bit of longer rest, but not unluckily the fact I'm not going to be back again, because, I mean, this has been an insane event so far. And, I mean, we've covered 3 out of 24. That's an 8th of the event. I hope my maths is right, but we've covered an 8th. I mean, what we've got in 3 hours is what I would have expected to see over the whole thing. Brilliant so far. Yeah.
Well, this is the whole point of VCO Infinity is you watch a 24-hour endurance race, and normally at this point of the race it's pretty calm, not much is going on. But obviously every hour you get a restart. Every hour you're getting a race start down to turn 1, you're getting battling, you're getting a race finish, you're getting pit stops, you're getting strategy, you're getting overtakes, you're getting everything, you're getting crashes, you're getting memes, you're getting slow-mo replays of people flying through the air, you're getting Delta Sport going for a spin and nearly getting collected as well. That was fair sticking that one in reverse, but find the forward gear and off you go once again. British Chicane not wanting to rejoin straight back onto the apex as they return up the hill, rejoining the race circuit. Oh, it's just so scary rejoining at that point of the track.
Did see someone asking as well, is it Silverstone with the Acura next? Ding, 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 you are on the money. It is going to be Silverstone with the Acura next. I mean, that's going to be an interesting one, isn't it, that? That is going to be really good. I mean, you know, the GTPs, I do like them a lot around Silverstone, so we'll have to see what the drivers can do there. But, yeah, the Acura, I don't know how it's been so far, because we haven't had that one yet, at least for us. We did have the Acura early on around Akiyama, didn't we? Around 4.
Yeah, indeed, and it was won by Elvis Rankin. An expected pit stop in that race, of course. And when it comes to our top teams, we will see the Red Line team being driven by Gustavo Ariel in the GTPs in that one. See how he gets on. Elvis Rankin, he was victorious in that car earlier on, will be back out in the GTP as well. So curious to see how that's going to work out between those top two. Elvis Rankin, who's already got a victory in that car, should be very big for the top points scorers between Coanda and Redline. Which this race, this is the thing, right? We're looking at the battle for the victory, and obviously it's 50 points for the victory, 49 points for second. So as much as you're looking at the fight for the win, and it's obviously very important that Commander do win this race, it is only a 1 point swing. So it's one of those ones where if you're in Diogo Pinto and Team Redline's boots, you sit there and be like, how much do you want to put on the table to go for this? Because genuinely, if they sit in second position all the way to the checker flag, which would be really boring and they're not going to do that, but if they were to, they're going to take 49 points. They'll be on the podium in 8 of the 9 races. They'll be looking really strong.
Definitely, and I mean, that's the GridandGo.com Esports 2 car going a little bit late on the brakes and unfortunately rear-ending the Movano car. But yeah, I think the thing is though, with Commander being 1 point ahead, even though we know it's a point, do Redline want to sacrifice a point to their rival? If it was maybe GridandGo.com or Edition, maybe they'd think, you know what, we're happy to sit in second and go for the move if it is like concrete, 100% done. But with it being Commander ahead of them, they don't want to lose a point to Commander, because just say we get to the final round and it is 1 point, this race will be looming around them for the whole event then. So I think, you know, if it's like now here, easy move up the inside, you could probably make it, I'll go for it. But obviously if you're like 4 or 5 tenths back, it's just not worth it at all. So it's just about, you know, just picking it at the wise moments. As we do see Matteo Blotter go ahead of Gregory Hoverson, and we can see that happening here. P1 and P2 together, 3 and 4 together, 5 and 6. They're all just working together, just trying to bring the gaps down and just pull away from those behind. It's, I wouldn't say clever, it's just quite self-explanatory what they're all doing, isn't it, at this point in the race?
Yeah, it really is. Like, you kind of follow the leader, don't worry about it too much. Let the laps tick off, do battling when you can, but don't worry about it too much. That's just how you play this part of the game. There was a look to the inside from Gregory Hoverson. This is back to the race lead where Oscar Pai remains at the front. You've got to worry about that slipstream. I mean, this is the thing, is I don't know. The drivers most likely will be well aware as to it. If you leave the final corner at, say, quarter of a second behind, like Diogo Pinto is at the moment, who leads at the line if you keep everything completely pinned? Battle, though, for 6th position, Sven Haase, who's already been off the road once today. Gregory Hoverson has now been dropped behind the Grid and Go car, but seems to be sliding around quite a lot in that Radical SR10. Clearly, he's very comfortable with where the right foot is on that car.
I mean, these cars do slide. I've driven them once. I've commentated a lot on these in the Radical Esports series, and they are very slidey cars. And I think the good thing is because they're quite light, because they're, you know, quite narrow cars, and you know they're not that big, that they battle really good. And I think the shameful part is because these guys are playing it clever, but we're not getting the full extent of what we do see sometimes in these Radical SR10s. I mean, sometimes they are just constantly battling 2, 3 wide, but because of the nature of the race, they're not going to bother doing that. They don't want to lose time to those behind them, as this, of course, is a battle for 5th down, and a back to the battle for the front. So I would say a battle, it's more just a train of 2 of them following each other, with Commander Esports of Oscar Pai and Team Redline with Diogo Pinto, who lead the way, of course. Darren McCormack doing a very good job in P3 for EMM, of course. At the moment, they sit 3rd, but they are 86 points back from Redline at the moment, so they're not going to gain it, but it's not like they're going to be losing loads and loads and loads. And also it means they can pull ahead of Drago Racing more, GridandGo.com, Williams, etc. But they're at least gaining on those behind.
I just wonder with this, like, will the likes of Darren McCormack and Will Murdoch be able to close in on Oscar Pai and Diogo Pinto? Because at the moment the gap's been it's been holding generally over the last 10 minutes, somewhere between 2 and 2.5 seconds. It's not really been flying out, it's not really been closing down, it's sitting where it is. Map performance down the inside and into the inside of, I believe, the Blue Mercure Esports car, and that was a pretty solid hit. And more fighting coming down the hill. I mean, that was a pretty egregious hit at T1. But yeah, will Darren McCormack will be able to close in if they battle? Sure, between Pinto and Pai, but outside of that, I just don't think that they've got the pace behind to catch up with these 2 right now. Yeah,
I mean, you kind of need Pai and Pinto to battle, really, don't you, for the others to get involved, and that's just not going to happen, because these 2 are very wise. They're top of the game. They know what to do and what not to do in these situations. As Sven Haase passes Matteo Blotto and goes into P5 again for Grid and Go Esports, who in the standings are, before this race, sit P5. So they're 10 points back from Drago Racing, who are a lot further down than P15. So that would put them into P4. So this is a key race for Sven Hasse, and you know, well, he's not going to gain on Will Murdoch the 8 seconds back, but if he can keep ahead of Hoverson and Blotto, this is a decent chance of them going fourth here, which of course gives them momentum to hopefully try and catch up on EMM, who are only 30 points up the road.
Which, considering he has driven into the back of Darren McCormack in this race, you know, it's...
You'll take that.
You would absolutely take being in the top 5 right now, because that incident going into turn 3 could have ended far, far worse for Sven Hasse. It's such a fast corner and such a brutal corner. I mean, we've seen it already, how much it's bitten some, like the TC Esports car, David Tabera, who continues on the circuit in 11th spot. I thought he might have actually turned to pit lane, but he is actually driving. But he had a big slide off that corner, was lucky not to hit the barrier. And, you know, lost a whole heap of time and a whole lot of tyre wear in doing so. Sven Hasse could have repeated that feat and, thankfully, just about avoided it, as we see the number 1 car there at the bottom of your screen. He's ahead of Gregory Hoverson by about half a second, and will lead that down into turn 1. The top of your screen is the battle for the race lead between Pye and Pinto.
Indeed, and I also think, talking about that contact with Hasse and McCormack, I think McCormack was so lucky. I mean, once I saw that, you know, the grinandgo.com car hit the EMM car, I thought that's it, they're both off into the barriers, good night, you know, that's your race over. McCormack, the car didn't even act like it got hit, it just carried on at full speed. So yeah, I think McCormack would have been very scared for a split second in that one, as of course Will Murdoch was there watching it all happen and just made his way through and thought, yeah, I'll take P4, thank you very much. I don't mind that whatsoever. It's looking a little bit further down, the gaps are starting to increase. Of course, it's about 7 seconds between 4th and 5th. It's about 3 seconds between 8th and 9th, another 3 back to 10th place, as it's Alex Garcia now in that spot for MG18 Simtech, who I think will be quite happy with the top 10 here, given their start so far in this series. And I think the same goes as well for 07, who sit in P7 at the moment. I think they'll be very happy with Matteo Blotto for getting a top 10 here, if they can of course keep it.
The gap did come down to 2 seconds. Darren McCormack closing in with Will Murdoch in chase. Someone into the pit lane. You can hear there with the siren going off. Don't worry, it's not just for fuel. That will be a damage repair. No one's expected to come into this pit lane for a fuel pit stop. We'll expect this one to run for the next 17 minutes and 40 seconds all the way to the checkered flag. Gregory Hoverson back ahead of Grid and Go, up in the 5th position at the moment. So those two switching back round again. There's the look to the outside for Gregory Hoverson, the Falcon kart trying to make the move, and it will be Grid and Go. Sven Hasse keeping ahead. He's got the outside line going into turn 3, which normally is the one that prevails. Big and aggressive on the inside of Gregory Hoverson, but the outside line does indeed prevail for Sven Hasse, so he does remain ahead.
It was scary for a moment, because I thought there was going to be contact there, because they both drifted out wide and wider than I thought. Of course, Hoverson's done a great job so far in the Falcon Sim Racing teal car, who it's normally sort of training. It's normally the blue Falcon Sim Racing car there in the top 6, not the teal one, as he is to the outside for Hoverson now in towards the braking zone of turn 10. It's going to be all the way around the outside, back at the inside. Oh, Hasse goes deep. Hoverson has to avoid. Little bit silly, I think, there from Sven Hasse, and that allows Matteo Blotto now to try and go through. But in all of that, Hoverson got ahead. So in the end, it doesn't really matter what happened, I suppose, there.
I think Hoverson probably will have a slowdown penalty from doing that, though. But Sven Hasse, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've got to say, this whole, you know, it's my corner, I'm ahead, it's my corner or whatever, and then you drive off the circuit. It's just not. It's not always the best idea. One. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you. Sven Hasse gave it a good go there on Gregory Hoverson, and Hoverson skipped over and went to a final. He's having a position anyway. Don't worry about it. I think the slowdown penalty. Yeah. I mean, if he has served it, either way he's lost out to Sven Hasse anyway, who has now found himself ahead going down into the opening corner of the track. Oh, and there's a slide as well from the back marker. Lovely.
I mean, if it was me, I'd say Hoverson, you know what, might have the position, but obviously, no, gets the slowdown. The game doesn't take context into account, as we all know and love, especially for my iRacing, which seems to tank itself all the time, even though I don't think I'm that slow, but there we go.
What's your iRating these days? Go on, Shane, name and Shane, what's your iRating these days?
1.4. I did get up to 2.2 at some point, but then I don't know what happened, genuinely. And now on 1.4, so...
There's the Avalon car, which at one point did get into the pit lane again and repaired the front of the car. You did see it earlier on in the race with no lights on, and it had to complete an entire lap like that. I'm like 3.2, which is actually way above where I really should be, and every time I
You're
drive...
You're like 4.5 at one point?
No, God no. I'm at this... No, never been 4K. I'm like 3.5 max is how I've been. The problem is if you enter a race, like say for example I want to go and do the IRO 4s, right? Yeah. Or Formula 4s, whatever they're called these days. I drive them. I'm not that quick, so I qualify at the back, and then everyone crashes, and I still gain I rating. It's like I don't actually want to gain I rating. I'd really like to lose some. I'm not going to lie, I can do with it. There is a look at your live standings at the moment. 17.7 rating Redline and Coanda, so no major switches towards the top. EMM. Grid and Go, Drago, you're absolutely right. Not a good race for Drago, down in 15th position, courtesy of that opening corner flip, roll, like everything just did not go well for Michael Romanidis.
I mean, they was like 20 points ahead of EMM before we jumped into the comms box. They are now about 7 points clear of P8. I mean, 2 poor races and you just file your way down the field. I mean, it's not going to be good at all for Drago for the next upcoming races if it continues to go on like it has done. But of course, you know, Romanidis got a little bit hard done by at turn 1 with I thought he locked up, but I guess he got tapped. And then of course in the last race at Okayama, that also didn't go too well either. Did it with them qualifying down in 20th on. So not been too good for them, as we do see here Gregory Hoverson looking for P5, and Haas goes back ahead again into P5. This battle could get very juicy between these three, I think.
If I was the safety car driver, which is not in this race, don't worry, I would be preparing to get into the wheel. Ooh. Especially when stuff like this. What are you doing driving into each other in a straight line? God, can't drive in a straight, mental. The Tatan Raztek car goes over the inside, then makes even further contact. Look, that is 2 people that are like, no, you haven't. No, you're going to have some of this. You're going to have... They were pushing their luck, both of them.
As Murdoch makes a move ahead of McCormack and goes into 3rd. Of course, the top 2. What a surprise. They sit 1st and 2nd as Hoverson again back ahead of Sven Hasse for P5. So they make their way back down towards turn 1. Let's see what happens here. Can Sven go back ahead? No, but I think he was looking for a bit of an up and under. But as it stands, Hoverson sits in P5 with a Fulton Sim team car. As Hasse there, he's flashing his headlights. He's making a nuisance and he goes up the inside. Oh dear me, that was scary. And they both go off the circuit.
We're getting some very odd bits of contact heading into turn 3 with some complete lack of awareness as to where the other car is that you're battling with. It's another time this happened, and Sven Hasse will be up in the 5th spot. I'm not saying whose fault it was because I actually don't know, but there's a lack of awareness happening one way or the other.
Indeed, yes, and I don't think Sven made it easy for himself flashing the headlights. He's probably trying to figure out where he's himself. As there we have Blotto doing the exact same thing, as once again Hoverson's going for the move at the outside. Sven will push him to the inside as much as he can, and Hoverson goes through into P5 now for the Falcon Sim Racing teal car. And we're just on board here with Matteo Blotto as they head their way through the 3rd sector now. Of course, this will be a keen battle to see what Dominic Pester can do. Of course, it was Blotto behind Hasse and Hoverson. Now it's Pester's turn to try and move his way forward with 11 minutes to go. As we see, no pit stops in this one. That was a slight bit of contact, I think, either that or Hasse had a really big tank stop heading through the final corner.
Let me tell you about the flash of the headlights in cars like this. I did it in GT3s. I was coming up to some lap traffic and I thought, right, I'm going to flash them because I need them to get out of their way. You would assume there's like some full beam, full mega beam that it turns on when it does the flash. No, it does the opposite. Turns the lights off and on again. That is terrifying. Terrifying. If you didn't know that's what that button did, you're in for a bit of a shock, and you kind of saw it a little bit there when we were on board with Matteo Blotto. There's the defensive line coming in from Sven Hasse. Look to the outside, and the up and under potentially coming in from Gregory Hoverson, the Falcon car, all the way around the outside of 110R. I mean, this is going to be a big one if he can do it. Still there. Oh, he's taking the Charlotte Roval line, going on the exit of that corner down to the hairpin, completely ignored the track limits.
Yeah, Blotto's there now on the outside of these two. This is a brilliant battle. Very feisty. Oh, Hasse, there's going to lose Eddie's round. Oh, DME's hit the back of him and he's gone round Sven Hasse. That was a bit over-ambitious.
Poor. It's the lack of awareness where the front of the car was, and for Sven Hasse now, no lights, and we have to drag it back into pit lane. That was always going to happen. They were fighting very aggressively. He was trying to get down the inside. I get what Sven Hasse was trying to do, trying to get to the inside, coming down to the hairpin. Maybe just having a bit of fun. That's it. Like, you don't know. Maybe the driver's just having a little bit of fun out there and whatever. But that was poor. It was never going to work.
Yeah, no, never. I mean, I don't even think that the other car ahead of him, Hoverson, backed up. I just think he had that much speed. He just hit the back of him, which at first I thought he was going to go through the middle of them, and I thought, oh no. Then of course he decided to go behind him, and goodbye to Sven Hasse as Matteo Blotto, who sat there behind, waiting for it all to unfold. Now has that P5 himself, so we'll see what he can do with that as Hasse drops down again to 15th. He's lost another couple of seconds and he's in the pit lane. Oh dear me. Now that is a sign of not happy.
He's got no lights. He's got no lights, so he needs to get that repaired. I mean, what that incident reminds me of a little bit is the 2025 Canadian Grand Prix, when there was contact between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, which, to be clear, was absolutely nothing like the incident in 2011 between Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton. They look similar, but they are not the same thing. Anyone who says they are, go and learn some racing. So, it's not as if I was that old, but you go and look at history of motorsport. I mean, you weren't alive, but I wasn't that young.
Exactly.
That old when the whole, three people setting the exact same lap time between Jacques Villeneuve, Michael Schumacher and Hans-Harald Frentzen. I didn't know what Formula 1 was. I was 2 years old. Yet still, I know what happened.
I was about -10.
Yeah, you got to go with your motorsport history. That's the whole point.
I do remember that. Well, I don't remember watching it, but of course I do know what it is. I'm not that lost in the world of motorsport.
Well, to be fair, when Zach Sweeney's gone to sleep, so he can't defend himself. When Zach Sweeney first started commentating here in RaceSpot, he didn't even know what Thruxton was. So
yes, I remember that conversation. And he didn't know any of the British tracks, did he, apart from the main ones? And now he's like,
well, he didn't know any circuits weren't really F1 circuits, so tragic, really. 7 minutes and 50 seconds left to go. Coanda continue to lead from Diogo Pinto's Team Redline car. 2 seconds back to Darren McCormack, but that gap's ebbed and flowed as they've worked their way through traffic. Now, realistically speaking, it probably will settle a little bit more. I believe that car direction behind, though, might be a 1 lap down Sven Hasse, who's come out in effectively in the lead battle, but not in the lead battle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The lap traffic is what could potentially bring Darren McCormack and Will Murdoch into the fight for the race lead. We'll have to find out how that one's going to unfold over the final 7 minutes of race number 9.
I mean, despite the fact this race has been nothing from the top 4, below that we've had some really good, close, intense racing. Here, of course, is our top 2, making their way through to the final corner to go once again down towards turn number 1. Of course, there'll be a lot more laps of traffic. And is that Sven Hasse behind them? It is, isn't it? Or at least he's one of the cars behind them, at least.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I say, it's not too major for them. They're just going to keep driving and not battling. I do get the feeling that Diogo Pinto will go for something on the final lap of the race, but I don't think he'll go for anything before that. No, like a very low-risk strategy, because again, the more they battle, the more they might bring Will Murdoch and Darren McCormack into it, and then your chances, at the moment, you're guaranteed to score 50 points or 49 points. You bring them into it, then you might score 48 or 47. It's not that bad, but it's one of those ones. You play the long game.
The thing is, though, if Pinto goes for the move, which he should be able to do quite easily with the slipstream, would you, if you was Oscar Pye, would you let Pinto go through and just come home in second, or would you try and fight back and go for a risk? Because, I mean, that's a difficult spot for Oscar Pye, because he could all go down in one corner like that, or he could hold up for Pinto and take 49 points.
Yeah, it's difficult because you don't want to lose a point to the person that you're battling.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what I think. If it was any other team, I think they might not. They're not going to let him go. but they might not fight them that hard if they were to go for something. Because the win's important, but 49 points is way more important. You'd rather score 49 points than 25, because if you have a crash and you drop down the order, it's very hard to work your way back up into things. But when that person that you're fighting is the person that you're trying to slowly eke some of those points off of, you have to beat them. You Coanda have to really stay ahead of Team Redline here. They have to get some consistent wins onto the board, and that is interesting. So we were on board with Diogo Pinto there, and you saw how early the lift was. That tells me that if Diogo Pinto is in second position and that far behind, that close to the rear end of Oscar Pai, I think he is getting passed by the start-finish line.
Yeah, it'll be an easy move. He's got so much slipstream behind us. A few cars are just making their way for the leaders, and look at the gap there. Will Murdoch 1.7. It was nearly 3 seconds earlier on. So with 4 minutes to go, maybe there could be a bit of a late twist in this one. If any more of the lapped cars hold up our leaders, as there is one ahead of them, as this is Brabham Motorsport, who had a really poor start earlier on. They got into some early contacts, and they get into some more contacts and go spinning off the circuit. The leg collector barrier. No, I don't know. No, they've rejoined. They disappear. They were just making their way back on track. But here we go again. The leaders. 4 minutes to go. You're looking at what? 3 laps here.
Yeah, it's about that for the top two, and again they remain very close. The scary part for them is there's a lot of people behind them, and I don't just mean Will Murdoch and Darren McCormack. I mean there's lap cars and everything in there. It's all a little bit crazy. Here's the Tatum ResTech car that's trying to fend off. Oh, there's contact, there's broken the suspension and into the barrier. A big spin on the start-finish straight. Thankfully it knocked the lights off, and there was no light disco happening on the start-finish straight, which has been very distracting for everyone driving past.
Yes, certainly would be, and I think also not ideal as if we go for the move.
Finally for the race lead then, Diogo Pinto will go for it. 3 minutes and 30 seconds left to go. Oscar Pai drops back into second position, and it will be Diogo Pinto for Team Redline leading the way. Darren McCormack 1.4 seconds behind, almost on the cusp of taking some major slipstream and dragging himself and the EMM team along with BS Competition back into the fight for the race victory, which is still slightly on the cards. It's been a long wait for them. They've pushed as hard as they can. Is that victory there for the taking?
Going to be close, isn't it? Of course, Pai has a chance to fight back, but of course, to what extent will he do so? That's the question. As make our way through once again, as someone entering the pit lane somewhere, as we hear the siren go off, as it always loves to do. And that gap now, McCormack to Pai is 1.4 seconds. Well, to the leader it's 1.4. It's 1.2 between Pai and McCormack. So if any more mischief happens here on this next lap, we're battling for the top two. McCormack and Murdoch are right there to get involved for the final couple of laps. So here we go again with our two leaders. And will Pai try and fight this back? I think because of the gap coming then, he's got to go back ahead, hasn't he, and just use that slipstream to his advantage.
I mean, look, I don't know what the right strategy is. These are always the races where I say about how, you know, the ones where they're like, oh, well, if you're in second position heading onto the start-finish straight, then you're guaranteed to find your way through and win and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes trying to play those kind of games, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they get a slipstream from back marker that you weren't predicting. Sometimes they get a better run. Sometimes you have a bad final sector, and being patient like that sometimes actually lets the race slip through your fingers. It's a tricky one to navigate, and it's one of those ones where really there's no right answer. You'll just know when you cross the line.
I mean, lap times here, we look at the 1:35, so I think we might be having one more here after this, as Gregory Hoverson goes into P5. A slight tad wide there for Pinto, but still has that lead. But Will Murdoch has got that gap down to a second there to the leaders, 8 tenths back to Oscar Pai. So we are probably going to have another lap here. Maybe there's a late twist. Is there anything that Will Murdoch can do? Likely not, but you'd rather be there just in case something happens.
I mean, he's within the 8, 9 tenths. Really, it's like once you get below 7, that's when you get the major bits of slipstream. Maybe, but Diogo Pinto's getting a little bit of slipstream here from some cars ahead. They're getting out of the way, getting in the way, and opening the opportunity for the Frenchman to try and look down the inside as we head into the third and final sector. 50 seconds left to go. We're on the penultimate lap of the race. There will be one more, and Diogo Pinto will have to survive one final lap of of the Fuji Speedway to try and take victory in the SR10s. They go back out onto the start-finish straight. Will Oscar Pye go for a move down into T1? Surely he's got to do something. Time is ticking.
Well, it's the last lap, and you can see there Will Murdoch is 7/10ths back, so realistically Pye's got to go for a move here to take the lead ahead of Diogo Pinto. Of course, these are the top two in the standings as it currently goes. In round 9 of 24, to the outside line goes Oscar Pye. Can he look for that leading spot? He backs out. I think it's just because Pinto's got that inside line. He's going to go for the up and under, potentially through the first corner. He doesn't go for it then. It did look like he backed out. Pinto broke a bit later to the inside, but Will Murdoch is literally 3/10ths back from Pye, so he's got to be looking behind him for the first time in this race.
And Will Murdoch has dragged that BS competition car back into contention for this race, looking for back-to-back victories of BS competition after a dominant performance in the NASCAR trucks, the Chevy Silverado at the Charlotte Roval. And Will Murdoch could be making it another victory for them. Phil Donnez behind the wheel in that one. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But Oscar Pye, he's as close as he's ever been. This is going to be a big drag race to the start-finish straight, surely.
Yeah, it definitely will be. And Murdoch's there for the taking as well. Any mistake from these two in that final corner, any send from Pye, Murdoch's just got to take the initial racing line and then go for a really good exit to make a move. And you can see again, Pye looking for the send on Pinto, but Pinto's not bothered whatsoever.
Here we go then, onto the start-finish straight. Strap yourselves in and get the drag race ready. Back out onto it. Team Redline lead, and here comes the snake. Here comes the trying to break the slipstream. Here comes the weaving in the darking. And we'll see what he can do as the light has fallen here at the Fuji Speedway. 0.2 of a second between Oscar Pye and Diogo Pinto. The gap's closing and closing and closing. But the victory will go the way of Team Redline. They are back on the podium. 8 podiums from 9 races, and yet another victory for Diogo Pinto.